What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to do a quick review on the stock BBIG. I think we could be seeing a bull flag breakout, a new bull flag just starting, the very early stages of a potential reversal. However you want to categorize it, that is completely fine, but I would love to review that with you guys in tonight's video. What we'll also do is use the stock IRNT as an example to learn from. IRNT just a couple weeks back had recently set up and broke out. In that same setup IRNT did, we are starting to see the potential beginning phases on BBIG. I can almost guarantee you in the event BBIG breaks out, it won't be exactly the same as IRNT, and they're not going to play out exactly the same. But I'll show you why I keep saying they're very similar. So let's go back and look at IRNT. The analysis and what you'll learn here on IRNT is going to be a hindsight 2020 analysis. From what you learn there, you're going to use that as your foresight guidance going forward on BBIG. And if in the event the same things that you see in IRNT, which we review, happen on BBIG, then you should garner some confidence to maybe take a trade or follow it, just pretty much with more confidence. All right, so with that being said, let's get into IRNT. Now, I have to say, you won't see, or the levels on IRNT have changed since it's been a couple weeks, so I'm gonna draw a couple levels on the chart, and you're just gonna have to trust that at that moment in time in the market with IRNT, this is how it was set up. I will draw it for you now. Back a few weeks, we had a setup like this. Okay, and I'm gonna color code these. If you're new to my channel, that's okay. Just make sure you pretty much continue watching these videos and you'll get the hang of everything I'm doing. And if you're older, then you know exactly what we're doing. So a couple weeks back, this is the way that IRNT was set up. It had -1 deviation trend here and -1 deviation trend here. You might be saying, what the hell is that, since you're new to the channel? That is this yellow trend line that you see here on the screen to the right. The screen to the right is the stock BBIG. These colorful lines you see on the chart are a predetermined statistical trend system that is automatically plotted on the chart because humans, again, make lots of mistakes. And well, my brain doesn't know how to do this. So yeah, I piggyback off a computerized algorithm that will just predetermine all of these levels for me. I'm sorry, my brain just doesn't work that way and I need a computer to do it for me, but hey, when it works well, it works well. So with that being said, just, kind of trust this video. So you see we have this predetermined yellow trend line right there. Okay, so let's add it. Boom. Then we will go to the 1-year day chart. Between 180-day 4-hour time frame on TD Ameritrade Thinkorswim and a 1-year 1-day time frame on TD Ameritrade Thinkorswim, I can generally find almost all of the important levels for a stock that I truly need to focus on for the day, and I can pretty much just disregard everything else. And I'll show you what I mean. So now that we've changed the time frame to the 1-year 1-day, and we plot another trend line like this and we color code it, you are now no longer confused as to how we determine the trend lines here on IRNT. So a couple weeks back, the trend system that I just showed you on IRNT was set up in a way that it provided two trend lines that specifically were plotted like this. Now, if you actually just have a little fun and draw a picture, you can see that clearly a bull flag takes place right in between the two trend lines. You can see the market goes up, it pulls back, it bounces back up to test the trend, it dips again, goes back up to test the trend, pulls back and goes back up and eventually breaks out. So if you want to call that a pennant, or an inverse head and shoulders, which starts from here, left shoulder, head, up, right shoulder, neckline break. That's completely fine too. They're both bullish formations, but nonetheless, that pennant pattern and that inverse head and shoulders formation that start to occur channel and form in between two specific trend lines at that moment in time, which at that moment in time on IRNT just a few weeks ago was the -1 deviation on the 1 year 1 day and the 180-day 4-hour time frame. So using that same logic, fast forwarding over to the screen on the right and using BBIG as an example, we now have two trend lines, very similar to the way we had them on IRNT, except they're broadening to the upside as opposed to closing into a pennant, which we may or may not discuss too much about. So when I look at, say, a 5-day, 15-minute chart, how is this trading so far? We have come down to the trend line, bounce. We have gone below that trend line, bounce a little bit, bounce a little bit. Nonetheless, we have come up and above, and we have kind of pushed all the way to the top trend line now. So aside from that, you can see this market has broken the trend line down here, and we've moved to this one. I could try to tell you the future 6 different ways, but nonetheless, what we're really looking for here on BBIG is over the next couple days, if not maybe a week or so, we want to see if a bull flag happens in between these channels like this, that eventually holds and breaks out of the top trend line. We will look for an inverse head and shoulders pattern in here. We will look for just a momentum break above that trend line. The whole idea is it doesn't really matter what convinces you that it's bullish, as long as you view it as bullish when it's breaking out, if it's breaking out. What we could see, as already described, is a inverse head and shoulders formation or a bull flag formation, but whatever it actually is doesn't matter. As long as the market on BBIG successfully crosses this trend line, which is called a -1 deviation trend, with confirming volume, we will probably see a breakout. Just to give you more confidence in hopium, do you see this setup on BBIG? 1 second. You can already see there's an inverse head and shoulders pattern happening. Okay, so the move down to the lower trend line, bounce back almost to the top one, move down. Now we've created a double bottom. We'll call that the head. Pop up back to the top trend line. This is a resistance mark. You may not know that now if you're new to the channel, but just know it's a resistance mark because this is a first attempt of breaking it. First attempt moves typically don't break. So then again, we have broken up to it. We will probably try to pull back off of it. If we do, and it drops all the way back to this trend and bounces back up, we have created an inverse head and shoulders formation, channeling in between -1 deviations on the 1 year day and the 180-day 4-hour chart. And once and if the market crosses this one here, we will go into a breakout. In just 1 day from now, we're going to have their earnings report, a perfect catalyst to potentially break the market out or maybe continue the downtrend. We will see. But nonetheless, as mentioned before, you can see that currently IRNT is trading just below the -1 deviation on the 4-hour chart here. And if you switch to the daily, you will see that we have just dropped down here. And now you might also be saying, well, why is this significant here and there? Look at what it did in the past. Again, we were down at the -1 deviation. So in the past, we've already done this similar setup. Now, it doesn't look the same, but I can guarantee you that this bottom right here was probably a deviation, just like I showed you right now. So let's imagine that this is what the deviation looked like. So the market came down, right? Bounced back up, came back down, held the support, went to the 1 deviation again, and finally broke above with confirming volume. Okay, think about it. We went back to the trend line. The top one broke out above it with confirming volume. And you can see we had bullish activity to follow there and after. Okay, if we go back and we actually look at IRNT, let's say on a 90-day 5-minute chart, so we can get a really close visual on what the price action looked like on that sort of day and that sort of moment in time. Let's see. Let's remove all the old drawings. I said this was going to be quick, and it isn't. As you can see, I like doing this stuff. I find it very intriguing trying to analyze the markets, understand the whys, the do's, the don'ts, this, that, and the other, and I have a lot of fun with it. And I try to bring it to your guys' attention as best as I can with as much detail as possible. So now when we take a step back and we kind of look at the way that that system traded, you can see we came down, we bounced to it, we pulled away from it, we tried to break above it, couldn't, got rejected, swung all the way down to the lower side of the channel, got bottomed on it, bounced up, started trending back again, tried to break out, couldn't, pulled back, pushed back to it during the pre-market session, crashed, and then grinded up throughout the remainder of that day's trading session to create a wedge on the day that ends up breaking out through the -1 with what? Confirming volume. Look at the volume, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the volume. You have the statistical level. You know where you are significant. You're significant on a successful cross above the yellow line with confirming volume. So you're no longer confused where you need to look for the action. Now only thing needed is the action, okay? You know where to look for the action. Now does the action happen? Follow the volume. Going back to BBIG, look at where we're at. Look at where it's been in the past, down here, bounce. Look at where we're at here, okay? So going back over to BBIG, 10-day, 30-minute chart, you know where to look for the action. Do we get the action? Where's the confirming volume? We have an earnings report coming out in a couple days that could give it the action. It could be a day after, 2 days after. It may not work at all. But if you guys are following BBIG, if you are now going to follow BBIG, your action level is above 438 with confirming volume. Now, if that isn't enough to get you guys a tad bit excited, let's go a little further. Now let's talk about price targets. If this does go rippy McDippy, where are you going to look to? What are you going to do? All right. So now that we've covered that in significant depth, let's take a look at price determination, which we can't do a full breakdown on, so I'm just going to give you guys, what I would do first, okay? So, like you see here on IRNT, when it breaks out, what does it do? So it breaks out of these yellow lines, which if you look at the 4-hour time frame, look at where the bottom one is. So this line that I've drawn here, this yellow line, it was that line, but since then it's slowly moved to here. So just know that this trend line was probably this one here. And when we switch to the daily chart, or actually it's the other way around, excuse me. It could have been, it's hard to say exactly, but I think it's the other way around. You can see where the daily chart is right here. So the daily chart trend was this one. And that one on the 4-hour that's all the way down here was there, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. But the concept is, you see where the yellow trend lines are down here, and you see where the white one is right here, okay? And then you see where this white one is right here. Those would be the next 2 solid trend lines within this script to locate after the yellow. So applying that same concept to the right, we go to the white trend lines. These are the next closest long-term solid statistical trend line levels next up in the event BBIG crosses up through this one. So if this is going to break out successfully, we would normally target this breakout here from the 430s up to 593 to 630. And we'll cut the video there because, again, we don't even know if that's going to happen. So if that does happen, we will then come back and give the next updated video on what you should do going forward. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you guys like this video, an in-depth run at one stock. If you guys really like it, then maybe I'll try to hammer out a few more in-depth videos on specific stocks and plays like that. So I will see you guys in the next video.